Hello everyone and welcome to my The Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Phyllis Summer's position of power will put her in another tricky situation. Following Victor Newman's decision to kidnap Jack Abbott and demand Chancellor in exchange for his return, Diane Jenkins Abbott will push Billy Abbott to cave in. The problem is that it isn't up to Billy. Since the finalization of Billy's contract was delayed, Phyllis is still in charge of Chancellor along with the rest of the Newman Empire. That may be a snag Victor didn't anticipate and could make it a little tougher for his plan to work. It's one thing to manipulate the Abbotts over captive Jack, but Phyllis hasn't been buying Victor's scare tactics so far. Phyllis knows Victor would never hurt Lily Winters and the twins, so she's always been adamant that Kane Ashby shouldn't fall for this whole abduction bluff. Once Phyllis finds out the news of Jack's kidnapping, she may think it's just another ploy on Victor's part. Considering Nikki Newman's deep bond with Jack, Phyllis may argue that Victor will return Jack soon if he wants to keep his marriage intact. However, Diane may go to her old rival and ask a heartbreaking question. It's easy to imagine Diane pleading that if Phyllis ever loved Jack at all, will she please make this trade and reunite him with his concerned family? Phyllis may end up thinking back to the time Victor swapped Jack out for Marco Anicelli, the doppelganger he found in a Peruvian prison. That could leave Phyllis torn between wanting to get Jack out of his latest captivity mess and wanting Victor to pay for what he previously did to her. Since Phyllis was married to Jack and unaware of that Marco swap for months, she was duped into going to bed with Marco repeatedly. That horrible violation is something that still drives Phyllis's disdain for Victor to this day. As a result, Y&R spoilers suggest Phyllis may be reluctant to just hand Victor a win by giving up Chancellor. At the same time, Phyllis will know what Victor's capable of due to all the Marco chaos and may have some sympathy for Jack. It may ultimately come down to whether Daniel Romalotti Jr. and Summer Newman can convince Phyllis to surrender Chancellor in the end. Whatever the case, the Young and the Restless spoilers say Phyllis will have a big decision to make when it comes to Jack's freedom and future. The power dynamics in Genoa City are about to shift once again, and at the center of it all stands Phyllis Summers, a woman whose strength, stubbornness, and history with the Newmans may soon force her into one of the most difficult decisions of her life. According to new spoilers from The Young and the Restless, Phyllis finds herself holding a position of power that Victor Newman may not have fully anticipated when he launched his latest ruthless scheme. In a bold and dangerous move, Victor Newman has kidnapped Jack Abbott, demanding control of Chancellor in exchange for Jack's safe return. It's the kind of calculated power play Victor has built his empire on, cold, strategic, and designed to force his enemies into impossible corners. But what Victor may not have considered is the unpredictable factor now standing in his way. Because the finalization of Billy Abbott's contract has been delayed, the authority over Chancellor hasn't yet passed into Billy's hands. Instead, the company remains under the control of Phyllis and the broader Newman leadership structure, placing the fiery redhead squarely in the middle of a dangerous corporate war. This unexpected complication immediately changes the rules of Victor's game. Victor may have expected to pressure the Abbotts into submission by holding Jack captive, but manipulating the Abbott family is very different from manipulating Phyllis Summers. For all of Victor's intimidating tactics and fear-driven negotiations, Phyllis has never been someone who bows easily to threats. In fact, she has spent years resisting Victor's attempts to control or frighten the people around him. From her perspective, Victor's dramatic ultimatum could simply be another attempt to force panic where there shouldn't be any. Phyllis knows Victor's reputation well, but she also knows the lines he rarely crosses, especially when innocent people are involved. In her mind, Victor would never truly harm Lily Winters or the twins tied to this escalating conflict, which is why she has remained convinced that Kane Ashby should never have fallen for the kidnapping bluff in the first place. When the news of Jack's abduction finally reaches her, Phyllis may initially react with the same hardened skepticism she has shown before. The possibility lingers in her mind that this entire crisis is simply simply another elaborate manipulation by Victor, a dramatic bluff designed to scare the Abbotts into surrendering what he wants. After all, Victor has never shied away from psychological warfare. Yet even as Phyllis considers that possibility, another thought begins to weigh on her conscience. Victor's marriage to Nikki Newman complicates the situation in ways that even he cannot easily ignore. Nikki shares a deep and meaningful bond with Jack, one that has endured decades of rivalry, friendship, and emotional history. Phyllis may argue that Victor would never truly jeopardize his marriage by allowing anything serious to happen to Jack. If Victor wants to keep Nikki by his side, then sooner or later he would have to bring Jack home safely. That logic might feel convincing in the moment, but logic has never fully defined Victor Newman's methods. Still, the emotional pressure surrounding Phyllis is about to intensify in a way she never expected. Because sooner or later, Diane Jenkins Abbott will approach her not as an enemy but as a desperate wife fighting to save the man she loves. Diane and Phyllis share a long and bitter rivalry that has stretched across years of betrayals, manipulations, and deeply personal grudges. Yet in this moment of crisis, Diane may set all of that aside. With fear and heartbreak written across her face, she could ask Phyllis a devastatingly simple question. If Phyllis ever truly loved Jack, even once, will she please agree to Victor's terms and bring him home? The weight of that question would hang heavily in the air, cutting through years of hostility and resentment. For a brief moment, the conflict between these two women would transform into something painfully human, two people connected by the same man, now facing the terrifying possibility of losing him. That plea could trigger memories Phyllis has spent years trying to bury, because this situation isn't just about Jack being kidnapped, it also reopens one of the darkest chapters in Phyllis's past. Long ago, Victor orchestrated a cruel and twisted scheme involving a man named Marco Anicelli, a doppelganger Victor discovered rotting away in a Peruvian prison. In a shocking act of manipulation, Victor secretly replaced Jack with Marco, allowing the imposter to live Jack's life while the real Jack remained trapped far away. During that horrifying period, Phyllis had no idea that the man she believed was her husband was actually a stranger wearing Jack's face. She was deceived for months, unknowingly sharing her life and her bed with someone who was never Jack at all. The betrayal was not just emotional, it was deeply violating, leaving scars that Phyllis has carried ever since. Those memories are the reason Phyllis still burns with resentment toward Victor to this day. Every time she hears his name, echoes of that humiliation and manipulation resurface in her mind. And now Victor is once again demanding that she hand over something valuable in exchange for Jack's freedom. The irony is almost unbearable. Part of Phyllis may feel that giving Victor Chancellor would be nothing more than handing him another victory, a reward for the very man who once destroyed her trust and dignity. The thought of letting Victor win again could make her stomach twist with anger. Yet at the same time, the shadow of that Marco nightmare reminds Phyllis exactly how far Victor is willing to go to get what he wants. If he was capable of replacing Jack with a doppelganger once before, who knows what extremes he might reach now. As the tension builds, Phyllis finds herself trapped between two powerful forces pulling her in opposite directions. On one side is her fury at Victor, the man who violated her life in ways she can never truly forget. On the other side is her lingering connection to Jack, a man she once loved deeply and who now sits helpless somewhere in captivity. Even if their romantic chapter ended long ago, the bond between them has never completely disappeared. Somewhere beneath Phyllis's hardened exterior, there is still a part of her that cares what happens to him. And that emotional conflict could make her decision far more complicated than anyone expects. Ultimately, the voices that may matter most in this situation belong to her own children. Daniel Romolotti Jr. and Summer Newman may step in, hoping they can reach their mother in a way no one else can. They know the pain she carries from Victor's past schemes, but they also understand the kind of person she truly is beneath the anger. If anyone can convince Phyllis to look beyond revenge and focus on saving Jack's life, it might be them. Their words could become the emotional turning point that forces Phyllis to confront the choice she has been avoiding. Does she protect Chancellor and deny Victor his victory, or does she sacrifice everything to bring Jack home? In the end, the fate of Jack Abbott and perhaps the future of several powerful families in Genoa City may rest entirely in Phyllis Summers' hands. Her decision could change the balance of power forever, and no matter what she chooses, the consequences will echo across the lives of everyone involved. As the tension builds and the clock ticks down, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Phyllis is about to face a moment that will define not only Jack's freedom, but her own legacy as well. And in a world where loyalty, love, and revenge are constantly at war, the path she chooses may shock everyone watching. The weight of the decision continues to grow heavier with every passing hour, pressing down on Phyllis Summers like a storm cloud she cannot escape. In the quiet moments between urgent phone calls and tense meetings, her mind drifts back through the tangled history she shares with Jack Abbott. Their relationship was never simple. It was filled with passion, heartbreak, betrayal, and reconciliation. So many times that even they sometimes struggled to remember where love ended and rivalry began. Yet beneath all the chaos of their past, there had always been something real between them, something that refused to completely disappear no matter how many years passed. Now, knowing Jack is somewhere out there, possibly frightened, possibly hurt, possibly wondering whether anyone can save him, stirs emotions in Phyllis that she cannot easily suppress. Even if she tries to convince herself that this is merely Victor's manipulation at work, the possibility that Jack could truly be in danger refuses to fade from her mind, and that lingering fear begins to chip away at the armor she has built around her heart. Meanwhile, the shadow behind this entire crisis looms larger than ever. Victor Newman has always been a master of psychological warfare, a man who understands that the greatest battles are often won long before anyone sets foot on the battlefield. By targeting Jack and tying his fate to the control of Chancellor, Victor has created a situation where every choice carries consequences. If Phyllis refuses to give him what he wants, Jack remains a hostage in a dangerous game of power. But if she gives in and hands over the company, Victor walks away victorious once again, tightening his grip over Genoa City's corporate empire. It is a trap designed with ruthless precision, and the more Phyllis studies it, the more she realizes that Victor has carefully positioned everyone exactly where he wants them. Yet the one variable he may not have fully calculated is Phyllis herself, because unlike so many of his rivals, she does not respond predictably to pressure. As word of Jack's disappearance spreads through Genoa City, the tension begins to ripple through the lives of everyone connected to the Abbott and Newman families. Concern grows, whispers spread, and questions hang in the air about how far Victor might truly go this time. In the midst of that growing unease, Diane Jenkins Abbott remains consumed by fear for her husband. Her rivalry with Phyllis has defined so much of their lives that approaching her for help may feel like swallowing broken glass. Yet desperation has a way of stripping away pride, and Diane knows there is no one else with the power to resolve this situation. When she confronts Phyllis again, the emotional intensity between them crackles like electricity. Diane's voice may tremble, but the message behind her words is clear. This is not about old grudges anymore. This is about bringing Jack home alive. For Phyllis, hearing those pleas forces her to confront the truth she has been trying to avoid. Jack is not just another piece on Victor's chessboard. He is a man whose life has been deeply intertwined with hers for decades. Memories of their marriage, their laughter, their arguments, and the countless battles they fought side by side flash through her mind like scenes from a long-forgotten film. Even the painful memories refuse to fade because every chapter of their story shaped who she became. Diane's emotional appeal strikes a nerve, precisely because it reminds Phyllis of a version of herself. She sometimes struggles to recognize the woman who once loved Jack fiercely enough to risk everything for him, and as much as she hates to admit it, that woman may still exist somewhere inside her. Yet anger remains just as powerful as compassion in Phyllis's heart. The scars left behind by Victor's Marco Anicelli deception still feel painfully fresh, even after all this time. The thought of surrendering Chancellor to the very man who orchestrated that humiliation feels almost unbearable. Every instinct in Phyllis screams that Victor does not deserve to win, that giving him what he wants would only reward his cruelty. She remembers the helpless rage she felt when the truth about Marco Anicelli was finally revealed, when she realized that her trust, her marriage, and even her most private moments had been manipulated for Victor's gain. That betrayal did more than break her heart. It shattered her sense of security in ways that still echo through her life today. Letting Victor claim another victory now would feel like reopening that wound all over again. But the emotional storm surrounding Phyllis does not stop there. As the pressure intensifies, Daniel Romolotti Jr. and Summer Newman begin to sense that their mother is standing at a crossroads that could change everything. They understand her anger toward Victor better than anyone, but they also know how deeply she values the people she cares about. Their conversations with her may start gently, filled with concern rather than judgment. Daniel might remind her that revenge has never truly brought her peace in the past, while Summer may speak from the heart about the kind of person their mother has always tried to be. Neither of them pushes too hard at first, but their words slowly begin to reach the emotional place Phyllis has been guarding so fiercely. Those quiet family moments could become the turning point in Phyllis's internal battle. For the first time since this crisis began, she may start to imagine what the outcome of her decision will mean, not just for Victor or the Abbotts, but for her own conscience. If she refuses to make the trade and something terrible happens to Jack, would she be able to live with that knowledge? Would holding on to Chancellor truly feel like a victory if it came at the cost of someone's life? The questions linger in her mind long after Daniel and Summer leave the room, echoing louder than any threat Victor could ever make. And slowly, almost reluctantly, Phyllis begins to realize that this decision may have less to do with Victor's schemes and more to do with the kind of person she wants to be. As the hours tick by and the tension reaches its peak, the entire situation begins to feel like the calm before a storm that will reshape everything. Victor waits confidently, convinced that his strategy will eventually force Phyllis to surrender. Diane waits in agony, hoping that somehow Jack will return safely to her arms. And Phyllis stands alone in the center of it all, holding the power to determine how this dangerous game will end. Whatever choice she makes, whether she protects Chancellor or sacrifices it to save Jack, will send shockwaves through the fragile alliances and rivalries of Genoa City. In the end, one thing becomes painfully clear. This is not just a business negotiation or a family feud. It is a moment that will reveal the true depth of Phyllis Summers' heart. Because sometimes the most powerful decision a person can make is not the one that defeats their enemy, but the one that defines who they truly are. And as the world of the young and the restless moves toward its next explosive chapter, all eyes remain fixed on Phyllis, waiting to see whether she will choose revenge or redemption.